Yes. Yes. So the first thing, thank you very much for all the details. So I do apologize. I believe that the event is live for people to see. If it is not, then I apologize to anybody who is watching a blank screen at home and can hear my voice or can't hear my voice, either way. So basically, I just want to talk a little bit about this robot, show you guys a few things of what it's doing first, of like what it can do. Maybe you can play an activity with you if you want. And then I think some of the slides and presentation will make a little bit more sense to go through. So, yeah. What was that?
My wife loves it.
So, stand up. And yes, that still makes me nervous. It always makes me nervous, and I'll get to that a little while. It shouldn't, but it is. All right, so
AIP service.
Presentation. So this is not the newest robot. So it's going to be just slightly slower. The microphones are not going to hear you as clearly.
Let's talk about you.
And
I found it.
so I'll play a presentation for you. This is normally, if you go to a sales demo for this robot, this is what's going to play. It'll kind of give you an introduction of itself in its own particular style.
Hello, my name is Mel.
Where's your volume?
I'm a humanoid robot, and naturally I'm designed by Hellcat Robotics. I come with my own software and I'm fully programmable. I'm autonomous, and I can connect to the internet through Wi-Fi. I can recognize your face, answer your questions, play music, ground objects, and even play soccer like a pro. I've more than 5,000 brothers and sisters in use all around the world, in universities and research laboratories. Do you want more technical details?
Yes.
But you have to speak loudly.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want more technical details?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Counting every articulation in my body, I have 25 degrees of freedom. The sonar located on my torso allow me to detect obstacles that I might encounter. My two cameras give me an enlarged field of vision. Thanks to them, I can look right in front of me.
Oh, there it is.
Or at my feet, to avoid walking where I should not. The 4 microphones around my head allow me to detect the origin of sounds nearby. Oh, while I think about it, there are 4 force-sensitive resistors under each of my feet. Combined with my inertial sensor, they help me keep my balance. I can use some LEDs to express various emotions and interact with you. And you, on the other hand, can use my tactile sensors on the head, for example, to pass me some information. Well, I guess that is enough for the moment. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, who thought that was a little slow? Like almost painstakingly. No, he's cute.
What would you like me to do?
Sit down. He's much slower than he was the other night. He'll sit. But here is one of the issues that an animator is going to face when working with robotics. You're working on, this is true of anything really. Have you ever worked on it, if any animator, have you ever worked on a project and then they change the voice on you after you've already, you've animated it to a certain character and then all of a sudden they change the voice on you and you have to reanimate it? This hasn't been reanimated. That's the problem, is the voice has changed a lot. And the problem is it's, I believe, still a little bit in flux of what the final voice is going to be. And so the animation doesn't constantly, instead of reanimating it every single time they change a voice, which sometimes they might change it in a week later, say, oh, we're going to change it again. That didn't go over well. Because this is still not a consumer project, there's the freedom for people to experiment and to try new things. But that means that as an animator, what you plan as a beautiful performance might not always be exactly what you had in mind, and you won't even know it until later. Like, hey, what's with it being so slow? Oh, that's right. The voice is now twice as fast as it used to be. So it's now done speaking and then it animates. So I ran into, I didn't animate that. That was animated probably, what, 5 years ago? Probably, it's been a while. Well before I joined the company. So I imagine that once the final voice is settled, that will get reanimated and re-updated with everything. But I did run into some of those issues when I was animating on the robots of we animate on something and I'm like, okay, but we can't nail this down yet because we don't know exactly what the voice is going to be. Like they might choose something else. So there's definitely one thing that I think you're going to run into all the time with animation clients. But in this case, since it's a lot of things can change without people telling you, instead of the client wants it changed, it could change without people telling you. You might find it, you might be in for a surprise. And I think that's probably going to happen not just at this company. I think that's going to happen at quite a few like robotics companies as you get more this kind of idea. If you have teams that are working on separate things all across the world, as we were. So if you get larger teams and you're going to have people making decisions and your performance, what you plan on being perfect is not going to be your idea perfect. So that's one of the things I had to give up early when, and Andrew can confess, it was very, very, very painful for me, is giving up the idea of this timing on everything has to be perfect. So a couple people couldn't be here tonight and they already wrote in with some questions. And one of the questions that they asked me was, what are a few of the things that you had to adapt to? My slideshow will go into that a little bit, but one of the things I definitely want to talk to you right now, because that was a great example, is you can't always plan your performance to be perfect. Expect it to change and really just generalize it. If you can get the mood in there, this thing is cute enough that people are actually going to forgive you most of the time. And I'm happy about that now, but it was very, very frustrating for me at the beginning of yes, but that timing needs to be yes, 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 instead of. So that kind of change took me quite a bit getting used to. All right, so Matt chats. What do you guys, Carlos? What do you feel was your favorite? And without saying it out loud, just could you make the decision? If we can do one of, yes, can you type? Oh, it will? Oh, it complains now. Okay, never mind. Okay. Okay, so if we can't do it, that's fine. Okay. Then we'll pass on Mad Chats. So one of the programs, and I think like when I was at the company, we spent a lot of the beginning of like the time that I was there at the beginning, making kind of just a proof of concept, just to prove that we as a team could make something. So this is something that we want to be able to say, hey, it's a commercial app and people will like it. but it was really for us to prove our chops, or at least that was the initial idea of it. And these guys are awesome. The more I work with them, I bow down to how awesome they were able to make, working with some limitations. But we made. Does everybody know Mad Chats, or is it, sorry, Mad Libs? Everybody know the concept Mad. I'm sorry, that's copyrighted, so we had to change it to the idea of Mad. We had to change our name to Mad Chats. But we created Mad Libs on the robot as kind of just like little entertainment. And at the beginning, when I was animating Mad Libs, I would take just the text and I would time myself out in the microphone, or I would type it in. We can just type it in and have the robot speak it. And I would literally like record the robot's voice and have it all timed out. And I would animate the entire performance straight through. And then later on, once we figured out where we wanted, because you have to pause for words and input. So the performance can't be a straight through input. It has to be like a give a section, give another little section, give another little section. And this robot is quite powerful. It is a computer. It's a computer with arms and legs. And so it can do things quite fast, but there's still this little bit of loading time in between those sections. So one of the things I tried to do was I tried to do like a virgin, Mad Libs. Oh, I can't say we tried to do it. And the first thing that I tried was getting the hips, like animating to the music the whole time. But the problem is you can't have it going through the whole time. The animation, the music will be running on a completely different channel. I'm going to use channel because I don't know what words you guys would use. You can fill me in for better technical terms if need be, but that'll be on a different channel than the animations, and they might load up at different times. So if I were to play the song all the way through and then try to play Mad Chats on top of that, it wasn't going Mad Libs on top of that. It wasn't going to line up. So I had to animate everything in little tiny chunks, including the music. So I had to find little bits of the music that I could load in a loop that would work well for that section, and just kind of have it do a little hip shake to the beats in just that section. And then between sections, find a nice moving hold. Well, it's not even a moving hold. When a computer stops to think, it stops to think. So a hold before it goes into its next little rhythm section. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able. Carlos just gave me a red light on. It might just. Can we do debug? I forgot to do debug. I forgot it too. So we'll decide really quickly if we can show you that or not, but that will also tie into another part of the slideshow of it has a few different kinds of animations that you can do. You can do a full-on performance, which is what I tried to do at the beginning with the Mad Libs, and I found out that you couldn't at all. It just wouldn't happen. They have to be broke up into little tiny chunks. And then there are autonomous animations, which are all programmatic. So if you guys ever want to look for something insanely cute, but you have to watch and fast forward, type in now, which is NAO soccer. And this is all done programming. The first thing that they told me when coming to the company is don't try to animate a walk. That's the first thing you want to do when you get a new rig, is you want to animate a walk, find out what its character is, find out who this thing is. And the very first thing they told me is don't animate a walk. The reason is the most an animator has been able to get without the robot falling is 3 steps. That's what I was told. Because there's so much vibration and it builds up over time. So by the time you get to the 3rd step, it's going to fall. It's going to be completely off balance. So that's all done programmatically, and it does have sensors on its feet to know like where, and it knows its center of gravity is about here. So it knows, oh, I might fall, I might not fall. This is safe for me. So there's teams from all around the world that program this guy to try to get faster walks and at least looking for this little orange ball. And it's great, but that's not the kind of animation that I was working with. I was all timeline-based animations. And I think I've stalled enough time. Are you able to find it? Okay. So we'll get him to stand up. I can play the stand up and sit down all day long. I don't know who wants an animator, no matter what any other animator creates. Everybody likes to stand up and sit down more than anything else.
Let's play Mad Chats. Do you know how to play? Should we play a particular story?
Maybe. It's not the funniest, but it's
Very well. Which story do you have in mind? Sorry, I don't know that story. Fabulous. Roses are red. Nice choice.
Yeah, so it is actually a clown version.
All right, I'm going to ask you for some words.
Am I allowed to say what it is?
Please tell me a color.
It uses nuance. So it uses the same thing that your iPhone does.
Sorry, I am having trouble understanding you. It helps if you speak loudly and clearly and we are facing one another.
I am now.
All right, tell me a color.
Okay. Anybody got color?
I heard okay. Do you really want to use okay as a color?
No.
All right. I need a color.
Cyan.
I heard sorry, yeah. Do you really want to use sorry, yeah as a color?
This is what happens when we don't have.
Very well.
Is it has
Tell me a color. Say it.
Which is not nuance. So it really is.
Tell me a noun.
So here's the Wizard of Oz, and it tells you what happened. So now, cheeseburgers.
Yes. I need a noun.
Oh, yeah.
Cheeseburgers. Just a few more.
Usually,
I need a mass noun.
the great thing about Mad Libs is it's only as funny as you want to make it. So if you have a horrible, dirty mind, then it will be funny that way.
Sorry, I am having trouble understanding you. It helps if you speak loudly and clearly and we are facing one another. Tell me a mass noun.
Water.
Water. Yikes, I'm terrified of water. Tell me an adjective.
Harry.
Harry. Harry is a totally hilarious word. Okay, last one. I need a noun.
Monkey. Monkey. Monkey.
Bombs. No, I'm terrified of bombs.
Okay.
Radical, are you excited for me to perform?
No.
No worries. I'm excited enough for the both of us. Just sit back and be amazed. The classic poem, Cheeseburgers are cyan. Cheeseburgers are cyan. Bombs are blue. Water is hurry. And so are you. I really liked it. Would you like to play again?
No.
Okay, thank you for playing
It
with
was
me.
actually one of the better
I
options
enjoyed
out of the sound
Doing
library.
silly stories with you.
The sound library is full of, I don't know, it was thousands and thousands of sounds, and there are many, 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 many laughs, very few of which I'm comfortable with. So that's one of the things that we worked on together. And so what I was able to do is I was able to work on the performance itself, but the input stage, for the most part, is what's this called autonomous life, as it's just sitting here doing these pre-made breathing, and usually it's trying to look at you if you're close enough to try to keep contact, and it can, especially the new ones are a bit more front-facing microphones. So, they're really going to try to look at you so they can hear you better. This one has microphones all around, so you can scream at it from anywhere. But it also doesn't recognize you as well because the microphones have a little bit more noise than the new ones. But the great thing about animating on this particular project was I tried and I tried and I tried to do the whole performance to where everything flows together. But I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure an animator paying attention knows it just stopped. Don't die, don't die. So that's one of the things that I don't know of. I don't know of any solution for robotics in general. I don't think it's just the now robot. I think just robots in general are computers, and I don't think everybody's worked out the loading time for all of these systems perfectly. I've seen other performances of many different ones, including some like the guy who makes like super realistic, like himself looking robot. Do you know Matsuko, by the way? The big transvestite celebrity in Japan. That guy made that big transvestite celebrity robot, and it looks amazingly real until it starts moving, and it has the same problem though. It has and then continuing along with its action, it has like you can see the hard drive thinking. So one of the things for me as an animator is that was kind of tough. But what it forced me to do was it forced me to say, okay, I don't say roses are red and violets are blue. I say roses are red. And just make sure that pose is bigger than what you normally would have done. And then when you go to violets or blue, you try to make that end pose. You try to make those end poses where you know that there's going to be a pause, at least something entertaining. So when it's paused for that moment, at least that one thing is interesting to look at, and then we can move on to something else. So golden poses, so one of the questions that somebody else asked me for this is, what is one of the things that you brought from robotics and are able to apply to the animations you do now? I feel that I'm better at my golden poses now because I had to be. And I wish I had 100% success rate with everything I did. Yeah, whatever. But
Hello, everybody.
Hi. But those were two examples. So the first thing that you saw was just a straight run-through presentation of it, just a straight-through performance. And that could be pretty much smooth and seamless. It could have music in the background. It had sounds and everything involved. The second thing you saw was an interactive program, which is what these are really meant for, is to be interactive robots. Yes. And so things like this, things like the head moving around and user focus are things that I now, as an animator, had to take into account when making an animation. Is it okay for me to talk about Pepper just a little bit? So the majority of animations that we did for at least for this kind of game were actually on the larger robot called Pepper. I'll pull up a picture of it in a moment, but it's about this big white robot with a massive tablet on its chest. But that brought in graphics that we could bring into the presentation to show the progress, because you get 18 words input on a mad chat, and you can, is it over yet? But we use things like the sounds. Probably didn't notice, but the sound, you're getting a little bit higher pitch and a little bit higher pitch as you go through. That's what we tried to do to kind of try to solve the solution. Or sometimes it'll say, hey, you're halfway done, or you're almost there, only 2 left. But we didn't want, that's still in there, right? Yeah, but it won't say that all the time. I believe that some of those are wrong. I believe the 50% is hard coded.
I think ready to register, but not all those yet on the flight.
Gotcha. Yeah, roses are red was our test.
Is it typical of doing like hybrid animations where I'll do systemic versus and animated? Like if you were
Yes, so that if you want to give me an example.
well, so if you crafted a ballet pose or whatever, and
A pie.
behaviorally you wanted to have it so that
Can you see this going on right here?
yeah.
Don't leave me
This is
hanging.
animated by hand.
Yeah,
This is autonomous.
I see how it is.
But particularly with Pepper, Pepper is meant to be in a store. It was made for the company SoftBank, huge Japanese mega corporation, and it's in their stores selling their phones. Well, advertising their phones. It's not working a register. that's not what the company, that's not what this particular robotics company is meant for. It's really supposed to be social interactions. It's really the focus of this company, which is what made me wet my pants when I saw the job ad for this company. It's like, oh my God, it's puppeteering with a robot. And that's a lot of what it is. But it was a big shock for me to see things like this, like the head. So if we're doing a Mad Catz performance and you're trying to do a performance, I talked to a puppeteer. And the puppeteer said the one thing that you have to do is you have to make eye contact. Always try to make eye contact. Well, here's the problem with the robot is if there's lots of things going on in the room, it might try to look somewhere else. And there's nothing I can do about that. As an animator, I never found a solution for that, but the robot got better. And so it was able to really focus, and especially due to these guys really, really working hard, the robot was able to focus in on you a lot more. So there are times where I might turn the body and I'll just have the head continue tracking the person. So I'm able to do this and not worry about the head, which that was great. But there were other times when I need to do like a double take kind of thing. And so I am able to kind of blend it and say during this, and that was the nice thing about taking these animations and breaking them into little tiny chunks, is I was able to say, this chunk I do, that chunk you do. And the robot was pretty good about doing it. It might get lost on occasion, but in general, I would try to animate to where it wouldn't spin around too much. It tried to know where, it tried to animate to an audience instead of just making an animation. So yeah, I've had to deal with that a lot, but I think based off of just those two, I could probably go into the slideshow now and try to go into a little bit more information. So an animator learns how to do a $16,000 fly dive off the desk. So people ask me, what are some things that you had to learn about? I spend all of my time as an animator trying to figure out the physicality, trying to get weight into a character, sometimes failing completely. This has it solved for me. I don't have to do any rigging. I don't have to do any skinning. I don't have to worry about weight. It has it all. The problem is that weight is expensive. So the story will come up in just a minute, but before I go too far, I was told that I'm supposed to tell a little bit about me, which I didn't do at the beginning. Art major, and I graduated from animation mentor later on in life. That's my education. I've worked for video game, mostly mobile gaming. I've worked for broadcast doing some After Effects stuff maybe like 10 years ago, so as a motion graphics artist. And I've done some commercial stuff. And then I worked in robotics. So here's our $1 million question. Is a robot going to do my job and take over the world? The answer is totally yes. That is my desk, my tablet, and he took over. If you are an animator, your job is gone. If you are a Japanese robot ninja warrior, yes, your job is taken by a robot. If you are a pirate, and this is Pepper, by the way, your job is taken. But robots can break, can't they? So there's hope for me in my future. I can still get a job as a robot repairman. Well, if you happen to be stupid enough to let an animator touch a robot, things like this will happen. Yes, then repairs do need to happen. But unfortunately, all your repair jobs are going to be taken by wooden figurine drawings. So we're out of hope.
Pound it.
You stole my joke.
Nicely done.
Is it getting hot? Oh, no, the battery is unplugged. Okay, so yeah, the three styles of animation that we have going on is we do have this programmed animation. Later on, if we can, I'll try to pull up a YouTube video of the robots playing soccer. You need to watch it on fast forward though, because man, they're slow. But I don't do any of that. I am not a programmer, never have been a programmer. I can make him blink a little bit in Python. That's the extent of my knowledge. Then we have the pre-animated entertainment. That first one that you saw was a straight run-through. Even that straight run-through was a little slow because they built it in a way that is not as efficient as what these gentlemen have figured out how to build it. So if these gentlemen made that presentation, it would be smooth all the way through instead of those little pauses. because you can have one timeline and just do it. But then we have application animations, and this is just what most people who have worked in video games are used to, is you build an animation set or an animation library, whatever you want to call it, and the program will just call those particular animations. And that's probably where I spent the majority of my work. So here are the big adjustments that I had to do. And all of these tie together. So somebody asked me what were the hardest adjustments and what were the lessons learned. All of those kind of interact with each other to make it. It's not one bigger than the other. Gravity. This is the swan dive. Here's the thing. You need, if you're calling an animation library with a robot, and you have a pose that's way over here, and then you start your next animation on frame 1 with a pose that's way over here, your robot has 1 frame to do this. In CG, that's okay. I learned the hard way. I accidentally had a keyframe at frame 1, and then a keyframe at frame 2 that I forgot to delete. Frame 1 looked like this. Frame 2 looked like this. So normally, I'm working, I don't have everything loaded up as an app on the robot. I'm working in the software and I have to send it to the robot. And usually that network is slow enough that I have, a good 15 seconds sometimes to wait for that to get fully loaded up and ready to perform. So I noticed the door was open, I push play, I go and close the door, and I look back, and my robot just goes, da, 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 da. That was back before the half price drop. It's now only $8,000. So I would only feel half as bad. But I just, in slow motion, watch this beautiful dive of $16,000 going off the desk. Luckily, these guys are really, really tough. I'll give you an example. Wow, he moved it up quick. Yeah, keep talking to me. But what happened is he cuts all his power. He usually has motor stiffness. What happens if you go skiing or snowboarding and you throw out your arms? You hurt yourself. What happens if you just relax yourself and do this? It doesn't hurt as much. So that's what the robot does. It knows where the center of gravity is, and if it expects it's going to fall, it will relax.
Hello, everyone.
So even with that, the desk was taller than this, and it did a nice bam right on the head. It just had a little tiny crack in the plastic. Done. Take it to repair. Like, oh yeah, let me just give you a new piece of plastic. These guys are really tough, actually. They're meant to take quite a few falls from their own height. They're not supposed to take that many falls from a desk, but apparently they can. And I still apologize for that. I still feel really bad, but it gave me a story to tell.
You're not the first or the last person to say you're really like that.
I imagine not, but I was hoping that I wouldn't be. I was hoping I wouldn't be amongst that elite group, but unfortunately I joined the group. So the second concern that we have is safety. Trying not to kill small children. Now with this, it's not that big of a deal. Now you do have things like your joints here. You don't want a kid sitting there sticking your finger, but this isn't a consumer product right now. This isn't something that you're going to give your child for Christmas. But if I go back a little bit, these guys are pretty big. These guys are up to here in stores in Japan right now. They've got a pretty good wingspan on them, and they can spin and move and swing and dance. So one of the things that I really needed to get adjusted to was the safety of the robot. One thing was falling. So the safety on this robot, when he was, could you cut the stiffness on him? Oh, he's so booted. Oh, okay. Okay. So this arm right here, if I were to raise both of his arms up his head like a celebration, usually you want to go, yay, with this big, like, way out in front of you kind of thing, like doing the wave. The problem is, this robot, like us, doesn't have a whole lot of, like, counterbalance back this way. So if you throw his arms, which have motors and weight in them, way up here, he does, oh, anyhow, that's always taking me some faults. So performance-wise, I had to learn to do a lot of gag, bring it in and bring it out. So if I'm going to animate, I have the power of Grayskull, I'm not going to do this big old sweep. I'm going to do this pull like this. Anything off to the side, you have a little bit more freedom to move around because he can get his stance. So I tended to overdo that, as Carlos would often point out to me. I would often get the robot doing this big stance like this because I'm trying to get him to move like this and I don't want him to fall. So my solution for that was like almost having to do the splits, which actually didn't work as good as it should have. But safety was a big, big concern. And these guys have a lot of safety sensors on them, especially this big guy in particular has a lot of safety sensors on him that if you're anywhere near the area, then, so if someone stands near my right arm, it's basically just going to either A, tone the performance down on the right arm, or just not move it at all. Which for the most part was fine. It was always disappointing to me when somebody would see what I did for the very first time and they would stand too close to the robot. And so it's supposed to be this big performance saying, hey, come here, hey, let me show you something. And it's just doing this the entire time. So as an animator, that never made me happy. But what I could do is I could animate a little bit more to the side, but I couldn't guarantee that there's nobody to the side as well. So as an animator, one of the big adjustments was safety. Now the big thing for that is I want these big, broad, golden poses that I talked about earlier. So one of the problems that I found a lot on safety, and Andrew and Carlos can point to this a lot, is occasionally the robot would just jerk during a certain part of the performance. And there was nothing in my animations that added your head check. All the keyframes, I checked all the curves, everything, but the robot would jerk. And it turns out that maybe like the infrared sensors were picking up a little bit too much off like a bright sun ray off the floor or something like that. So the arm wasn't reaching its full extent. And so when it was supposed to be up here and just go to here, it's now doing this. Because you said, hey, by frame 15, be here. And it said, well, I'm not anywhere near there, so let me go. So that is something that's not automatic, at least not at this moment, for them to be able to detect, okay, that is not a move I want to perform. That's something that I want to do these big, broad poses, but sometimes I knew it had to be toned down because for some particular reason, this one angle set off every safety sensor for anything within 50 feet of that direction. And so I couldn't go right here. It wasn't happening all the time, but it was definitely something to keep in mind. Safety was something I never have to think about in CG. I never have to think about decapitating children unless I want to. So another thing is motor fatigue. This is something that if you're animating, you want to get that pose, and you're going to sit there polishing that pose. And you're going to try, but you're going to keep the whole character in that pose. Problem. These are real motors. And when they raise the hand like this, luckily this is a position that the motor doesn't need to do anything to hold that position. He turns back on. But most of the things that it's doing, especially like the legs, any kind of big movements in the legs, those motors are going to get really hot. And after a while, they don't have as much power as they did. Would that be a good way to put it?
Yeah, yeah. So when the motor starts to overheat, the maximum current of the motor is lowered to keep the motor from going out. And what that means is that the motor has less strength. So just like muscles, in a human, as those motors, fatigue is really the right word. The motor effectively becomes weaker.
So CG characters don't get tired. These guys do, and they're really, really fun to animate because I can animate, and I will show that, I can animate directly on them instead of just in the viewport. I can literally take this guy and pose him. But if I want to sit there and tweak that pose for a while, I might have that my right arm is getting hot. And eventually they have their own safety that will completely say, you can't touch me right now. So one thing that I had to learn as an animator was get those poses in quickly and roughly, and then finesse it on the computer.
is basically the general process that I went with. I'm not sure if it's the ultimate solution, but animating on this guy, like for an animator, this is like amazing. Like I can put him exactly where I want him. That is exactly it. That's perfect. But you can't do that for long because you hold your arms out for 10 minutes and see how you feel. Robots are the same thing. And that was something I was not prepared for. That happened in my animation test to get into the company. Is the robot is A, almost out of battery, and B, almost overheated. And I need to make an animation of a boat. I won't say which one, but I need to make an animation really, and I need to do it quickly now. There's a definite time limit of this robot might die before I can get a job. So I think I learned how to animate a lot faster because of working with a robot and learn how to just really rough in that pose and then go back and tweak it later. Now, the last thing I want to talk about that really was different for me coming from CG world was calibration. So calibration is what it is. It's supposed to go here, and then it goes, instead over time, it goes over here, and I can't keep that pose. Well, that's the same as a robot. Eventually, things are going to get a little bit online. Like, anybody have a Wii? Anybody have a Wii? If your Wiimote sometimes got a little bit off, and you have to like recenter it on the screen or something like that. Well, calibrating these guys isn't as easy as like centering it on the screen and pushing that button. So, did you see the soccer kick? I don't know if you guys saw, but it went up on one leg and did a little soccer kick earlier. I love that soccer kick because the animator did like that whole like little twist in it and everything. And you think it's gonna fall, but it's not gonna fall. Well, we have how many of them now in Chicago? 3? We have 3 of these in Chicago doing that performance 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, almost 365 days a year. Yeah. So it has to try to do that soccer kick all day long. You're going to fight motor fatigue, but you're also going to get, it's just not going to be able to hit the exact same pose every time. So, you know, as animators, we're always trying to get that little subtle variation and things. Automatic, done. But the problem is that soccer kick is always falling because that soccer kick looks like it's about to fall because the animator animated it on the edge of the balance of a perfectly tuned robot. You work that robot 10 hours a day, every day, it's not going to be perfectly tuned anymore. And
Hey, nice
so,
to see you, everyone.
I can't believe how many times I would have to go back and reanimate that soccer kick. And by the end, instead of this, it would basically do this. Carlos says he can't see the difference, which I'm, you know, great. That's very good for Carlos. But that's one thing that I never really thought about, and even like I expected at least these 2 before I joined the company. I had no idea about these 2. So those were big changes for me. And what calibration for me meant that do things slower, don't hold poses too terribly long, if possible, or try to hold them in a position that's not as stressful for the robot. And I believe every robot's going to be different for that, so there's not a lot that I can say for, hey, if you're going into the robotics industry, do this. I can't help, other than learn where your robot is not using as much strain as it would. And so this guy is able to hold its arm up there a little bit, but not for that long. But it doesn't have as much stress as this. I guess that's the same with us, though. All right, so that's really all I had for slides. Now I kind of want to show you guys, if you want to see it, what it looks like in the program and to animate the robot. Did you have any questions first, though, before I go into that? Yeah.
Related to his previous question about balancing what you animated versus like when he's standing there doing the keep alive pose and breathing.
Yeah.
How much of that is pre-animated and how much of that is him keeping his balance, and how do you kind of balance these 2?
I don't believe any of that is him keeping his balance, is it? No. autonomous life. Like I,
The shifting of weight is all
Like, do you animate some of him keeping his balance when you are building the animation, or do you have to assume that he's going to interfere with your animation to keep his balance? Like an extreme pose, like kicking the soccer ball, like
okay.
you'd have to do that.
So what do you do to kind of let me try to rephrase this to see if this makes sense. What do you do to make sure that it is keeping its balance, basically? This. You animate it, you push play, and quickly do this. If you do that about 3 times in a row and it doesn't fall, you're probably safe to step back and do that a few more times and see what happens. That's it. Yeah, I mean, it does have its own, like, hey, I know I'm off balance or not, but we have a particular little tool that we used that was very, it's not kid-friendly named, about something about safety, F-safety, basically. And basically, if I ever got the freedom to use that box, I would use that box because it turns off that phone manager that comes over. Normally, though, I would not do that much because usually that is reserved for doing like a big performance dance. There's tons of dances that have been animated for this guy, and I can show you. You can see some of those later if you want to be annoyed with gunman style. So I need to get on to Robots Network. Okay. As I'm getting on there, do you think you could get him out of? Are you in choreograph, or could you get him out of autonomous life? Okay.